This is March the 15th, 1986, Julie Strong interviewing Pinky Patterson about black entrepreneurship on East 6th Street between 1890 and 1920. Miss Patterson is, I understand, about 93 years old. I'm going to turn on the machine now.
Okay.
So it's now recording.
Uh-huh.
Well, tell me, you said that you were born in 1892.
Yes, ma'am.
Here in Austin?
No, in Travis County.
Uh-huh. Okay. And when did you move to Austin?
I moved to Austin in 1905.
Okay. And why did your parents and you move here?
Well, my mother, she was already dead.
Uh-huh.
And my father lived on New York Avenue here in Austin.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
So you came in to live with your daddy?
Yes, for a while. And then I lived with a great aunt until I got married.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And you married here in Austin?
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh. And you've lived here all of your life then?
All my life.
Uh-huh.
That's right.
Bless you. I'm so happy to know that.
Yes, ma'am.
It's hard to find people who have been in Austin as long as you have, Miss Patterson.
1905 up till now. I've been right here in Austin.
You've been here 81 years.
Well, that's 81 years.
Well, tell me what you know about East 6th Street. Why did you go down there? And when did you go? Was it as a young woman?
Well, it was businesses, different business there. On East 6th Street.
Did you go shopping? Could you go shopping on East 6th?
Yes, I used to go shopping. And down on 6th Street. But that was in what block?
I'm really interested in the 400 block of 6th Street.
Oh.
Do you remember the 400 block where Dr. Delashua had his drugstore?
Well, he was a neighbor of mine.
Oh, he was?
Yes, ma'am, and we went to school together.
Well, I'll be asking you questions about Dr. Delashua in a minute.
Oh.
I'd like to hear about him.
Yeah.
Well, what else did you do on 6th Street besides shop and see the businesses there?
Well, it wasn't anything that particular that I did there. No more than we just go through there, and the undertaker was there, Mr. Tears. He was there, and he was related to my family, you see.
I see. What about the cafes? Did you see any restaurants down there?
Well, yes, it was, because when I worked in the, now let me see, was that in the block? I don't remember whether that was in the block where we had our beauty shop.
Oh, you ran a beauty shop?
No, Miss Christian, Mrs. U.V. Christian, and I worked for her. I worked for her about 8 years.
Do you know about how old you were when you were working for her, or when it was?
Well, let me see. My husband passed in 1925. It must have been long about in the 30s, late 30s.
Okay.
It was in the late 30s. And I worked up until in the 40s.
In the beauty shop?
In the beauty shop.
So you were a hairdresser?
I was at that time.
What else have you been? What else have you done?
Wash and iron, laundry.
Okay. Well, tell me about the restaurants that you saw there on 6th Street. Do you remember any particular ones?
Across from the beauty shop, I don't know the name of the man, ran a restaurant where we used to go over and get lunch. And then on 6th Street, I know that was in the 20s, where Mr. Lawrence Watson had a little store, and my father worked there for him.
Do you remember ever seeing Hugh Warmouth's
Yes,
cafe?
ma'am. He lived over on Selena Street, I believe it was. Yes, I knew him and his children very well.
Were you ever in his restaurant? Were you ever in his cafe?
No, I never was in his cafe. I didn't know he ran a cafe.
Well, it was either a cafe or a saloon. He was in business for a while with Julius Wright.
I remember Julius Wright. Julius Wright was married to a lady named Miss Barkins, and they lived up on
Miss Morgan's?
on
What did you say her name was?
She was a Barkin.
A Barkin? Okay. Was her first name Zula?
Zula.
Okay.
Miss Zula Barkins.
Uh-huh.
And they built a house on 11th Street where Miss Christian and them bought that property.
Right.
And now the Atlanta Life Insurance Company is there.
Right.
You know about that then?
Yeah, well, a little bit. Yes, ma'am. Where was Zula Barkins from?
Austin, as far as I know.
Okay. What about Mr. Wright? Do you know where he was from?
Julius?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as I know, he was right here in Austin when I knew him. And he was once married to one of the Walton girls.
Okay.
I believe her name was Della Walton. And she died before I was married.
Okay.
And after that, Julius married this Barkins girl.
Zula Barkins. Okay.
Zula Barkins.
Do you know what happened to the Wrights?
No, I don't. He died.
Where?
And the last I don't know when, but the last I heard of her, she was in California. And
So,
she ought to be way up in age now.
Do you think she's still alive?
I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Did you ever hear of a nephew of hers named somebody Falkenberg?
No, I didn't know of what nephew.
Well, I can't find out where Mr. Wright died, and that's why I'm asking you these questions. Do you think he died in Austin?
I believe he did, as far as I know. I think he died here in Austin.
Well, was it your impression that he was quite a good businessman? Was he successful?
Well, as far as I know, he was in his business, the business that he ran.
What was his business?
Well, on this, let's see, what did he say he did?
Well, I know he ran a pool hall.
A pool hall?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know about his pool hall, his business. I'll tell that. I wouldn't know about his business.
Okay. How did you happen to know Zula and Julius Wright? Were you all friends?
Well, I'll tell you, I knew her before she ever married him.
I see.
Because at one time, she was a beauty queen on the 19th of June.
Oh.
And we were her maids.
I see. So you were a maid to the beauty queen, huh? How exciting.
Yeah. That was before I was married now.
Now tell me when this would have been about.
When who?
About what year was it that she was a beauty queen and you were one of her maids?
It was about, well, I'll say about 13 or 14.
When you were, it was about 1913 or 14?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this was for a Juneteenth celebration, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, what did you all do? Was there a parade?
Well, we paraded, but we was from 11th Street, 12th, down Chicon, and it was a park called Idlehour Park.
Idlehour?
Idlehour Park.
And
that was over then in the vicinity, somewhere near where as near as I can remember, near where Miss Ada Simon lived. You know Miss Ada?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it was over in that vicinity somewhere, but I couldn't tell you exactly where it was. 'cause they're built up and done away
Yeah.
with all of that. And that was the first time I'd ever seen a man walk the rope.
What do you mean, walk the rope?
Yes, ma'am.
You mean a high wire?
Yes, ma'am. That rope was stretched from, I guess it was telephone pole,
Uh-huh.
a great big rope.
Uh-huh.
And he walked that rope. He had a long thing to balance himself.
Uh-huh.
And that was the first time I'd
Uh-huh.
ever seen it real. I've heard of it, but I saw that real.
Uh-huh. So this was part of the Juneteenth celebration then?
That was at a Juneteenth celebration.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
What did you wear as the beauty queen's maid, one of her
A
maids?
blue organdy dress.
Woo! Uh-huh. Did it go down to your ankles?
All of us were dressed in blue.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
And what did the queen wear? White?
No, she had on blue.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Was it a different shade of blue?
It was all of us was near alike.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, did this parade go down 6th Street in order to
No,
get...
ma'am.
No, it went down
there
11th Street.
No, ma'am. They were not allowed. No further. The blacks was not allowed on. No further than 11th Street.
What do you mean?
I mean to parade.
So you couldn't parade down 6th Street?
No, we didn't parade down 6th Street.
Well, I thought there were black businessmen down there, and blacks were down there all the time. Why couldn't you parade down 6th Street?
No, we didn't. At that time, I'm sure that we did not parade down 6th Street.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, tell me the year you were married.
What year?
Uh-huh.
1913.
Okay, so it was right before you were married that this celebration occurred.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that right?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. And what was your husband's name?
Claude Patterson.
Claude. And you were married here in Austin?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well, what else did you see on 6th Street? You didn't see any parades because blacks weren't allowed to parade down 6th
That's
Street.
right. They would parade. We'd go to the Ringling Brothers, which would go up Congress,
Uh-huh.
such as that, you
Uh-huh.
see. No, we didn't parade down no 6th Street.
Uh-huh. Well, were there any, do you remember any other special events that happened on 6th Street that you got to see?
Well, Mr. Cheers had an undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
The undertaker, he
Uh-huh.
was the only black undertaker in Austin at that time.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Do you, were there ever any performances for blacks in Austin, or any plays put on, or any musical events?
Not on 6th Street.
Not on 6th Street.
Uh-uh.
Where did the black performers perform when they came to Austin?
In different churches and in the school.
I see.
Uh-huh.
In the churches and schools. And where would they stay? If they were going to stay overnight, with whom would the performers spend the night? Would they stay at a hotel, or would they stay in
No,
someone?
we stayed in our homes
Uh-huh.
because it was here in Austin.
Uh-huh. But I mean the performers who were coming in from out of town. If you were a musician, a black musician, or a,
Oh. Now that was, let me see. How long you been in Austin?
I've been here since 1963.
Well, do you remember when the post office used to be on 6th Street?
No.
The new post office. You
No.
don't know when the post office used to be on 6th Street?
No.
Well, the post office was across Congress
Okay.
on 6th Street.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know whether to the right beside of the post office, but it was along in that block where it was Opry House.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And we used to go to the performance there.
Oh, you did?
They had, let's see, they called the ink spots would come at certain times, and we'd go to the Opry House.
Was this the Hancock Opera House?
Hancock's Opry House.
Uh-huh.
on 6th Street.
Uh-huh.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you sit down on the lower floor, or did you have to sit up in the balcony?
We was up on the 2nd floor. No,
Didn't have
no,
blacks
ma'am.
down
We
the
never did sit on the low floor.
Yeah. And would the whites sit down there on the lower floor?
Yes, ma'am.
What else did you see besides? What was the ink spots? Was it a singing group or what?
Well, they would sing and then dancing.
And about when would this be?
Now, they had one lady they called Black Patty.
Oh, yeah.
And when Black Patty came, all of the colored folks would probably buy tickets and go to the Opera House. Now, they performed on the first floor. But we couldn't sit on the floor.
So even when it was a black performer, the black audience could not sit on the ground floor?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, well now what kind of performer was Black Patty? What did she do?
Sing.
She was a singer.
She was a singer.
Did she dance?
No, she didn't dance.
What kind of singing?
She was very stout, but she didn't dance.
What kind of singing did she do?
Well, I guess in those days, it was popular music.
Okay. Can you tell me about when this was, Miss Patterson? About what year? Or about how old you were?
I can. I'll tell you. Let me see. I lived with Andy I married in 13. It might have been about 14 or 15, something
about
like
19, 14, or 15?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, were the Ink Spots a black performing group?
Yes, ma'am.
They were.
Well, they danced and would tell jokes, funny jokes and things.
Okay. All right. Now, where would these performers stay in Austin when they came? Do you know?
Well, I wouldn't know because, they couldn't stay in the hotels at that time.
That's what I'd think, yeah.
And now the Austin, the American National Bank was on the corner of 6th and Congress, you see. And that was before they moved where they are now. And we used to go to the bank there all the time.
What'd you do at the bank? That's where you did your banking?
We had a little money. We went. And then I'll tell you one incident happened there. They called him Humdina. See, my husband worked at the Driscoll Hotel on 6th Street.
Right.
That was on 6th Street.
Right.
And he was living at that time. And so this little fella, they called him Humdina. Well, he would do all kind of tricks, you see. So they tied his hands behind him, handcuffed him. And his, they tell me they sent to Huntsville and got a straight jacket and put on him. He had his hands here. They drove him up to the 5th floor.
Of the Driscoll Hotel?
With his head down and his heels.
Ooh.
And he came out of that jacket and threw it in the middle of Congress Avenue.
Is that a fact?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a wonderful story. Now, he was drawn up to the 5th floor of the Driscoll Hotel?
No, at the American National Bank.
The American National Bank building. I see.
Now, no, that building's there now, but it's something else there. And then now, they moved the American National Bank. It's on 6th Street, ain't it?
I think so.
Yeah, but it's the other side of Scarborough's store.
Right.
And Scarborough was there when we came.
Well, about when did this humdinger do his tricks? Do you remember about when?
Now, let me see. My husband was working. He died in 25. Well, I could say it might have been about 22 or 23. Because he died in 25.
Okay. What did your husband do at the Driscoll?
He was a bellboy.
Okay. Okay, so you did get to go to certain performances, especially when there were black performers coming in. The colored community was real interested in seeing those, right? And you went to see those performances at the Hancock Opera House.
Opera House, correct.
Did you ever hear of any black baseball teams coming to Austin to play the Austin black baseball team?
No, I didn't know anything about baseball.
Okay. Okay. No sporting events, huh? Okay. All right, so mainly what you saw on 6th Street was a business community. You saw the businessmen and you saw the cafes and the restaurants. And there were some shops where you could go shopping for clothing. Is that right?
Well, yes, we'd go up there sometime. There was, not Cohen Brothers. Cohen Brothers had a jewelry shop.
Where?
But then there was, I can't remember, but they had clothes and things there. And what I was telling, did you get about Mr. Lawrence Watson in the store where my father worked?
Well, you started to tell me about Mr. Watson.
Well, he had a little combination grocery store.
Combination grocery store. What else?
Oh, well, you know, sold vegetables and he peddled them every once in a while, you know.
He would peddle the vegetables?
Yeah.
You mean he'd take them out of the store and walk up and down the street?
Well, sometimes, I don't know where he got them, but I know sometimes he'd be on his little wagon.
Oh, really? And where did he go on his wagon?
He'd go around neighborhoods.
But he didn't pedal down on 6th Street?
No, he didn't. Not that I know of.
Now, this is Mr. Watson you're talking about, right?
And then Dr. Stevens was upstairs. That's where Thomas Delashua, you know, I guess you have that information.
Well, I have just a little bit. I want you to tell me more.
Well, Thomas lived, we lived on the corner of Myrtle and Waller. That is the last auntie that I lived with. And Waller Street went straight. It didn't go, Myrtle didn't go through. It was just a block, you see. And so Thomas and his mother lived right opposite of us. And they'd come over to my house. She was a school teacher. And Thomas and we went to a school called Robertson Hill School. That's right back of my church, Ebenezer Baptist Church at that time. It was called Robertson Hill School. And we went there. Thomas was further advanced than I was.
He was a little bit older than you.
And he finished. He was Dr. Stevens would help him, you know, he was...
Dr. Stevens or Dr. Jennings?
Dr. Stevenson.
Stevens would help him.
Would help Thomas Delashua.
How did he help him?
Well, I guess might have been finance, and when he finished, he went off to school and studied pharmacy.
Are you talking about John H. Stevens? Dr. John Stevens?
Is that on there?
On your list?
Doctor.
Yes.
It said Dr. Stevens.
That's right.
The doctors.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're talking about the right man. This Dr. John H. Stevens. So you think Dr. Stevens helped Thomas Delashua?
Quite a bit.
With money to go to school?
And of course they both did and gone now.
How else did he help him?
Well, I couldn't tell unless he helped him finance and sent him off to school, and then when he come back, well, he was a pharmacy. He had a pharmacy.
Well,
and Tom and I went to school together.
You mean at Robertson Hill?
We left Robertson Hill and went to a little school over on Olive Street. That was a high school.
What was the
Tom
name?
and I left. We walked over to Tilson, which is Houston-Tilson now. It was just, you didn't have to have a high school diploma in those days to go to college.
Oh, you didn't?
No. You didn't have to have a high school diploma then.
Okay.
We just went on And Tom finished, and I didn't finish. We had all white faculty and all black student body.
Now this is at Tillotson.
Yes, ma'am.
Was Tillotson a high school?
And now they have combined Sam Houston, and that's why it's called Houston Tillotson.
Right.
It was Tillotson at that time.
All right. Now, was Tillotson a high school or a college at that time?
Well, they called it a college, but you didn't have to have a high school diploma to go there.
So when did you go to Tillotson? About what years?
Well, I went there around about, let's see, I married in 13, and I went there around about 9 and 10 years, about the 9th and 10th year, but I didn't get no further than the 9th grade.
Okay, and this was at Tillotson. So if you went to Tillotson before you got married, right?
Right.
For about the 9th grade.
That's right.
And you got married in 1913 when you were, let me see, when you were 21 years old.
That's right.
So if you were in the 8th grade, you were about 14 years old in the 8th grade. So that would have made your going to Tillotson.
No, if I married in 1913, I went before I married.
So you were going to Tillotson about 1906 to 1909, something like
that?
that?
I was with my daddy long about that time.
Okay.
1906.
It was after that you went to Tillotson?
No, I wasn't with my father when I went to Tillotson.
Right.
I was with this other auntie when I went to Tillotson.
Okay. Was it after, were you with your auntie after you were with your father?
Yes, ma'am. After I was with my father.
Okay. But before you got married, so about 1910 you went to Tillotson.
Yes,
maybe,
ma'am.
with Thomas Delashua.
About 1910, 11 or something like that.
Okay. All right, so you had an all-white faculty and an all-black student body at Tillotson. So you didn't finish, but Thomas Delashua did finish Tillotson.
Yeah,
is that
Thomas
right?
finished. He finished and went off to school.
Okay. He went off to medical school?
Yes, ma'am. Let me see who else is on here.
Oh, well, wait a minute. I have some more questions I want to ask you about Dr. Delashua before we go on, okay? Let me make some notes here. Okay. Do you remember when Dr. Delashua had the drugstore? You remember that?
Yes. It was in the same building where Dr. Stevens was upstairs in the drugstore, downstairs on 6th Street.
Do you know why Dr. Delashua gave up the drugstore?
No, I don't.
Do you remember when he gave it up?
No.
No. Okay. Well, was Dr. Delashua a well-known person in the community?
No, his mother was a teacher.
Was he?
And then they bought, after that, they bought this, of course, I was married then, that big house that sits right in the fork of Rosewood and 11th Street.
Yes.
And do you remember Dr. Young?
I've heard of Dr. Young.
Well, Dr. Young was right across the street.
He was.
There. Right next to Miss Christian, where Julius Wright used to live.
Right. Well, do you think of Dr. Delashua as a good businessman, as a good entrepreneur?
As far as I know. As far as I know.
Well, what were his businesses that you think of when you think of Dr. Delashua? What businesses did he have?
I don't know no other business but pharmacy.
But the drugstore. So that was his major business as far as you know.
That's all I remember.
Well, you know, he left the drugstore in the late 1920s, and I'm trying to find out what he did after that. Do you know anything?
Well, I really don't know. He lived in that big house. And he used to have some deers and things over there.
Some rabbits? I've heard about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I never was in that house, but once he got, I don't know the year he married, but, they used to carry corpse to the house in that time. And I went there to see
his wife.
His wife.
What happened to her?
She was still smoking, and I don't know, before he married her, she was a Morgan. But I don't know what happened to her.
You don't know why she died?
I think she was a professional lady and was a secretary.
Oh, really? You think she was a professional lady here in Austin?
Yes, ma'am. Far as I know.
Okay. Do you remember Dr. Delashua selling any lotions or hair oils or creams or salves in his drugstore?
A son?
No. Do you remember Dr. Delashua selling any hair oils or lotions for your hair in the drugstore?
No, I don't know nothing about what he sold.
No,
ma'am.
Okay. I've heard that he distributed some products under the La Palme label, and I'm trying to find out if that was correct. But you don't remember?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Well, tell me who else on the list you knew. I see you've got a bunch of names on that list checked off. Tell me about some of the other people whom you knew.
I don't see. Let me see the Crawford. Let me see the physicians. I remember Dr. Abner. He was on 6th Street. And this year's at John Stevenson. I got him marked. And
Dr. Crawford, you have marked.
Dr. Crawford was my doctor.
Oh, he was? Tell me about Dr. Crawford.
Dr. Crawford was a wonderful doctor. And after Dr. Crawford, I used to work up there for them, too.
Oh, you did? What did you do?
I cooked and helped wash and iron.
At the doctor's offices?
That was Dr. Crawford.
Oh, really?
Now, he was a black fellow, we all belonged to the same church. And I guess this is the same Brown. If it's the same Brown that I know, he was a physician. Well, he waited on me once during the flu.
Oh, yeah, really?
And I was married at that time, and my husband had to come out of the hotel to get government work or either go to the army, and he ran on the road. And Dr. Brown then was my doctor. I believe Dr. Crawford was dead at that time. And then every givings I knew him. He was a dentist.
Right.
As far as I know.
Yes, that's right. What else do you know about Everett Gibbons?
I don't know too much about him. He was a good friend of my husband's.
What happened to Dr. Brown, do you know?
Left. He left Austin.
Do you know why?
No.
Do you know where he went?
No.
Nope.
No.
Okay.
And he had followed. I didn't know nothing about him. And this dentist, I remember that Miss Shelton, but I never did go to her, and I don't know anything about her. I just knew that it was a dentist by the name of Miss Shelton.
Did it seem unusual to you at the time that Miss Shelton was a dentist and she was a woman?
Say what?
Did it seem unusual that she was a dentist because she was a woman?
Well, it was just the same.
Just the same, okay.
And then the lawyers. Judge Dawkins.
Judge Dawkins?
Yes, ma'am.
He was a judge?
He was a lawyer.
Oh,
Did you have him?
Yes, I want to know what you know about him.
Well, one thing I know about him, he drew up the papers to our home when we bought it.
Oh, really?
And he didn't live far from me.
Did he stay in Austin a long time?
Yes, ma'am. He was here a long time.
Was he a businessman?
Yes, ma'am. He was a lawyer.
What other types of businesses did he do besides law?
That's all I
Let me
know.
interrupt you a minute.
Sure thing.
Here's a man that knows more about what you asked him than anybody.
I've talked to him.
Are you already?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. I know Mr. Jackson.
All
Yeah,
right.
he knows a lot. Do you think of Mr. Dawkins as doing anything else besides being a lawyer?
Not that I know.
No. Okay.
And his wife, she was a member of our circle
Oh, yeah? At Ebenezer Baptist?
of Ebenezer Baptist. That's right.
Well, how long did Mr. Dawkins live here?
As far as I know, they were here all long as I couldn't remember.
Do you know about when he died?
About which?
Do you know about when he died, Mr. Dawkins?
No, I don't know the year he passed. But it was after my husband.
A long time after your husband
Yes,
passed.
ma'am. Because he took sick. And the lady that sold us the place, she got him to do our work.
I see. Okay.
I had his picture in one of those books, but I don't know where it is now.
Which book did you have it in?
It was in one of these, but I don't know what I did with it.
What about Pinckney A. Williams? You have him checked off on the list.
P.A. Williams?
Uh-huh.
Yes, all I know about him, he was secretary for the American Woodman.
Uh-huh. Was he a pretty important person in Austin?
Was he with?
Was he a pretty important person in Austin?
As far as I know.
Uh-huh.
And he has a son now that's a lawyer in Houston.
Uh-huh. Francis Williams.
Francis.
Uh-huh.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, I knew him well.
Uh-huh.
Well, I used to go there and pay my dues. And
Pay what kind of
when I
dues?
was with my father now, this year D.C. Lacey,
Uh-huh.
well, he was a minister.
Uh-huh.
And he was a pastor one time at Wesley Chapel Church.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Was he better known as a pastor or for running this newspaper?
I don't know about the newspaper until I saw his name on here.
Uh-huh.
But I do know that he was a minister.
Uh-huh.
And when I was with my father, they lived right across the streets on New York Avenue.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And let me see who else still I have on here.
You had...
Now, it was a white. Now, I couldn't tell too much about that white because I'm mixed up on the whites because the whites was, it was white over the American Woodman, and then it was a Thomas White that run a cafe. Now, which one?
Do I have a white on the list?
It was a white on here somewhere.
Let me look.
Do I have a white?
Oh, yes, William White as a saloon keeper.
I don't know about that. I know it was one white that had a cafe.
Okay.
And his son was married to a first cousin of mine. And that's all I can tell about him.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know which
Mr.
white.
Cofield.
Yeah, what do you know about James Cofield? Do you remember him?
Yes, Mr. Cofield was, he lived on the same street that I lived on Washington Avenue. And the children, my daughter and my neighbor's daughter, used to go down to this Cap White's and get his supper every evening.
For Mr. Cofield?
And now, I don't know, they found him dead in his home.
Oh, really?
His wife was away at the time, And that was the property that we bought.
Oh, I see.
You know.
Uh-huh. So he died in Austin.
Yes, ma'am.
What was his wife's name?
Indiana Cofield.
Uh-huh. Well, was Mr. Cofield pretty well known as a barber?
Yeah, as far as I know. I don't know. I didn't know anything about him being a barber.
Oh, you didn't?
No, ma'am. I didn't know anything about him being a barber.
Can you guess as to about when he died?
He must have died long about 1925. He must have died long about 24.
Okay.
I'm almost sure, because Miss Cofield was away when he died, and she came. She was with her daughter at that time. I think her daughter was confined or something. There's a lot of it I can't just remember.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're remembering an awful lot, Miss Patterson. You've got a good memory.
That's what everybody tells me.
Well, there's some other people's names on here we haven't talked about. What about Thomas Perry? What do you remember about Thomas Perry?
Now, I knew some Perrys, but I don't know too much about the Perrys.
Okay.
I don't know about the I know it was a Perry, ran a cafe. But they got it barber there, haven't they?
That's right. Thomas Perry was a barber.
Mm-hmm.
So we might be talking about
his
different.
Wife?
No, she didn't run a cafe, as far as I know. Must have been another.
It's two Perry.
Molly Perry is Thomas's wife.
It's two Perrys.
Yes, ma'am. What about Samuel Holmes?
Who?
Samuel Holmes. You have him marked on this list as a printer.
Now, if that's Miss Holmes's husband, Miss Holmes lived, I don't know his first name. I marked it. They lived up on Hackberry Street, and she's now our president of my cycle. If this is the Holmes, if I were you, I wouldn't write that.
Okay. So you think there might be a descendant, is what you're saying?
Yes,
there might be a
ma'am,
descendant
because I don't know what his name was, and I marked it because I didn't know no other Holmes. I don't know his first name. And her name is Janie Holmes.
Okay.
And she lived up on Hackberry Street.
She now lives on Hackberry?
Who?
Does she live on Hackberry now?
No, ma'am. She lives on that street right off from Fuller Sheffield's funeral home. Myron Street.
Myron?
Myron Street.
Okay. All right. Do you remember Elizabeth Glasgow?
Yes, I do remember her, but mostly I knew about her was different things my auntie told me. She was one of the founders of our church.
Miss Glasgow was?
And that's all I can tell you about her.
And what church? That's Ebenezer
The
Baptist?
Ebenezer Baptist.
And that's all you remember that your
mother...
mother...
That's all I can remember is what she told me.
Have you ever seen a picture of Elizabeth Glasgow?
Say anything?
Have you ever seen a picture, a photograph?
No.
Okay. Do you have any photographs of any of these people we've talked about, Miss Patterson?
I told you I had them. I had Judge Dawkins in this one of these books, and I couldn't locate him. It ought to have been in this one. This is the last one. And him and Virgil Lott is together.
Ooh, you've kept quite a scrapbook here, Miss Patterson.
Do you know Virgil Lott?
No, I don't.
Virgil is dead. Virgil and somebody has wrote an article. It might have been Miss Simon's article. That's Mr. Clemens. He was a barber. He organized the Barbers Association.
Oh, he did? When did he do that?
I don't know just what year it was.
I'd like to look at that in just a minute.
Okay. Now, I knew this fella, that Judge, you know what I'm talking about.
Justice Henry Emmon Doyle, huh?
Henry Doyle. I knew him well.
Ooh, I'd like to read this article. Well, I'll come back and read that one in just a minute, okay?
I'm trying to see. I had Judge Dawkins in one of these books. Now, this is a cousin of mine. I know she was married to one of my cousins. That's Dr. King, and all of this article is about him.
Have you kept all these scrapbooks? Do you put these together?
Yeah. Now, this is me and my 4 children. This
Oh,
is
that's
me.
a nice picture.
This is my oldest daughter. This is my son, and this is the daughter right here, and this is my youngest son. This is where some flowers were sent to me since I've been sick. I don't know where in the world I put.
Gilbert Askey, is that Ada Simon's son?
This one is him. That's Ada's son. I just, you see, I fold these back to get the whole.
Sure.
The whole. See, like that. I know you see me. A lot of these flowers sent to me since I've been sick. My daughter would take me with the picture. Now this girl, I just cut that out. Not in this book. I don't know what I did with I might not have put it in the book. Him and Virgil, I think it was Miss Ada's writing. Let me see this. Let me see if I got it in this one. These are the only 2 I got over here. Now, this is a song that I composed.
Oh, how nice.
And this is my son wrote the music to it. They both write music. I'm going to look through here good, and if I can't find it, it's in the other book at home. That's my granddaughter.
She's pretty.
That's me and my son and granddaughter. This is my daughter when she finished high school. This was the Ebenezer Band, and that's me. I was an honorary band music. And I knew this man well, Mr. Corley. And this was my pastor.
Well, what was his name?
And L.L. Campbell, and this was Booker T. Washington.
That's Booker T. Washington?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, this picture's
And
taken in
just think,
1911.
I saw him in person.
Is that right?
Now, he came here. Reverend Campbell invited him here. And they had the program. They had the program at Woodridge Park. You know that park down there from the courthouse? That was the first time blacks had ever used that park.
Oh, really?
And he had that park down there. Yeah, that's Booker T. Washington.
Now, when did he come?
I've seen him in person.
And you went to that?
Sure.
Well, that's exciting. And that is Wooldridge Park, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, what did Mr. Washington talk about?
Oh, he talked about his institute and when he was a old boy and went off to school and different things.
Uh-huh. Well, who brought him here?
Reverend Campbell invited him here.
Uh-huh. Why did Reverend
And he
Campbell?
came on the train. He wasn't flying in those days.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying my best.
Well, what was the occasion that Reverend Campbell invited him for? Why did Reverend Campbell invite him?
Well, he just wanted him to come.
Uh-huh. About when was this, Miss Patterson, that he came?
That was in 1914.
About
No, it was 1911.
Okay.
Now here's Miss Ada.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is Miss Ada's writings. I don't know where I put, that's my little great-grandson when he finished.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Don't ask me who that is, because I don't know. This was Mr. Fowler. That was my grandson of the junior senior prom. I just don't know what I did with that treatment with message in that other book. Now, this is the Professor Anderson, what I told you, with the principal of the school.
Mm-hmm.
This girl is a little friend of mine. My daughter used to teach it.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Have you heard about her?
Mm-mm.
Here they are. This is Dawkins right here.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's Virgil C. Locke.
Uh-huh. History of the community. That's Miss Ada's writing. That's
Uh-huh.
right.
Uh-huh. And that's Mad Fuller, isn't it?
This is Maud Fuller. She used to stay with us when she was traveling, and for a long time she was over the National Convention of the Women Part.
Mm-hmm.
Up until she took sick and died.
Mm-hmm. She died in 1972, huh?
She used to live with us. This is Jerry Doe,
Mm-hmm.
right here,
Mm-hmm.
and this is Virgil Locke. He's a lawyer, too. History of the community. Miss Ada wrote there.
Mm-hmm.
So, this was at her party at the White House. I was there.
At the White House? The governor's mansion. Yeah.
Yeah. That's Miss White.
Mm-hmm.
The governor was in New York at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Dixie Jackson. That's a cousin of mine. She's, this is my pastor, his wife.
Marvin Griffin.
Mm-hmm. And that's him preaching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I come across that picture. Administration cut and shit up this. Today is election day. Have you been?
Mm-hmm.
Have
you gone over?
You done voted?
Yeah.
Well, that's
1946. So what is this article?
what's that? Anderson band?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mom Kids is on there, but I
really?
couldn't tell you who did. And Mr. Joyce, B.L. Joyce, I got him in one of them.
Yeah, here he is, right here. Is this the obituary?
That's the writer.
Uh-huh.
No, the picture of him is in a book
Oh, I see.
that
Mhm.
Miss Ada wrote. Well, that's about all this industry in here that I wanted you to see. And this is core and prison. Well, I'm going through it. Now my grandson went overseas with the chorus from Sesquicentennial.
Wonderful.
And these are just some of the scenes.
Remember what Mr. Washington talked about?
No, I don't. That's been so long till I don't remember it now.
So this was a real big deal, though, for the
Yes, ma'am.
black people in Austin.
Yes, ma'am. And they were very impressed with him.
The black people and the white people.
And the white people, yes, ma'am.
Well, when Mr. Washington was here, where did he stay? Do you know?
No, I don't know, because he wasn't here long, over a day or two.
And you said that your aunt...
I don't know whether he stayed over in the building, St. John's building or not. I just don't know, so I won't say.
Okay. You said that your auntie was a member of the committee
Yes.
that prepared for this event?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
right? What did she do?
They went out there and cleaned up and cooked. Cooked the breakfast, had the breakfast ready when he came in. He come in on a train. You see, they wasn't flying those days in 1911.
No, I guess not. So they cooked
everywhere you go now, you fly.
Right. Well, I don't fly.
Everybody but me.
Yeah.
They
So there
can't
was a
get me in.
committee.
They can't get me in a plane.
There was a committee of women who
Just a committee of women.
prepared the meal, which was a
Prepared
breakfast.
the meal, yes, ma'am, and cleaned up the building and everything. And he had a lot of guests, you see. It wasn't just them. They had quite a bit of guests out there.
Who did?
At this, out at St. John at this breakfast.
So the St. John's Association invited a whole bunch of people.
Reverend Campbell invited them.
I see. Okay. Is this Reverend L.L. Campbell? It is, isn't it?
Reverend who?
Reverend L.L. Campbell?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Reverend L.L. Campbell.
Okay. Well, did he
He
feed
came
all of...
here, they said he came here in 1892. That's the year I was born, and he stayed until he died.
Reverend Campbell did?
He was just almost a father to us.
Yes.
He certainly was a fine person. And he was the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church.
So Booker T. Washington came in on the train, and he had breakfast first thing, right?
Yeah, they had carried him out to breakfast.
And then what happened?
I don't know.
Well, you did not go to the breakfast, is that right?
No, ma'am. I was at home.
Okay.
But my auntie was out there for the breakfast.
Okay. And how many people were at that breakfast? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I knew some of them was on the pictures. There was Reverend Prince and Reverend Hull and Reverend Ball, Booker T. Washington, and Reverend Campbell don't show on the picture I got, and some of them I don't know.
Right. Where is that picture? Do you still have it?
Yeah, it's over home. Yeah, it's over to my house.
Do you live here with your daughter, or do
Yes,
you live
ma'am. I got sick, and they don't want, doctors don't want me to stay over there by myself. You see.
So the picture that you have has all these reverends in it, and also has Booker T. Washington. Is that right?
Yeah, Booker T. Washington is sitting at the end of the table with a napkin across his lap. Miss Ada borrowed it, but she brought it back. I got a whole lot of stuff over there. Yes, ma'am.
You need to establish a library, Miss Patterson. I think.
They got me on tape at libraries, though, telling different histories.
Okay. All right, I want to continue looking through your scrapbooks here. Can I do that? And I'm going to turn off the tape recorder while we look at the scrapbooks.